Okay, so we'll check this out. We should be going live soon. And this is very exciting. The meeting is streaming live. So, hello, everybody. For the first time in 8 years, you've got Mel. And I'm so excited. And what we're going to do is we're going to interview wonderful, amazing people from around the world. Some of them I've known for years. Some of them I grew up with. Some of them are family. And some of them I've never met before. And our first guest, and I'm hoping he arrives, is Mike Southon. It's somebody that I've never met before. Waiting for him to join us. And I've even prepared a jingle for You've Got Mel. And we'll see if everything works. So, why am I doing this? Well, many years ago, I had a show like this at IBC where I interviewed people. It was great fun. The show had to be 52 minutes long. Um, and nowadays, it's on Zoom. And I don't know whether you can see me or not. שולמית, את יכולה לבדוק אם רואים אותי? איזה יופי. So that was a reality check. And if you see me, say hello. And I'm going to try and see if I can see you also. For some reason, I don't see me. Okay, so here I am. Okay, I can see me now. So if you see me, say hello. And we're waiting for our first victim, first interviewee. And so here we are. I'm in Ramat Gan, which is near Tel Aviv, and my interviewee is in Britain. And one of the exciting things that we couldn't do 8 years ago is interview people who weren't in the studio. Also, you couldn't see them. It was a radio show and had a very limited repertoire. And now, with Zoom streamed live to Facebook, I will be able to, every day at 4 p.m. Israel time, interview somebody else who is amazing, find out about their lives, their struggles, their ambitions, get wisdom from them and tips, and how exciting this is going to be. So any minute now, we're going to be ready to go. And in the meantime, I'm going to prepare just to check out my jingle to see if it's working. It's working. Okay, that's good. And Mike, where are you? Well, you have 3 minutes, but you are British, so I do expect you to come on time. So any questions, any comments? Anybody? Well, there's 5 people watching. Can I find out who they are? Ellie Greenberg from Ottawa. Wow, that's great. Dean Katz is watching. So Ellie, how have you been for the past 50 some years? Wow. We were children together in Alta Vista in Ottawa, in the winter, in the summer, in the snow, in the, I'll have to turn this down now. And waiting for my guest. So I will now write to my guest and find out where he is. Give me a second here. We'll just wait a minute. We have 2 more minutes. So, Lior Manor, how are you, my friend? Wow, I miss you. I wonder whether you can actually bend my thumb telepathically. I'll just put my thumb here. Everybody can see it, and see if you can bend it without my even knowing. Oh my goodness, look at that. Pure magic. Oh my goodness. How did you do that? What a great guy. So yes, Ellie, it's been quite a few years. So where is my guest, Mike Southon? Where are you? You have 2 minutes. Does anybody want to ask any questions? Suggest anybody that I should bring on as guests in the future? Every day at 4 p.m. I'm going to I'm going to bring someone. Here we are, Mike. You made it. So let's have a look.
Hey, Mel.
Hey, Mike. Oh, I was wondering because we just started a few minutes ago.
Okay.
And can you hear me well?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we're broadcasting to Facebook Live.
Oh, wow.
So you have to say to me, Mel, I'm delighted to be on your show.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to be on your show. So there we go.
I'm delighted to have
your first one.
It's my first one in 8 years, Mike.
Oh, fantastic.
So we'll tell the audience how this happened, but I prepared a jingle.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to share screen for a moment.
Okay.
And hold on a second, and we'll see whether we can see our jingle. Hold on a second. Okay. Share screen. Are we ready?
Yep. Let's go.
Okay. On with the show, as they say. Okay, I'm going to have to work on this, but here we go.
Yeah.
Get a chair or grab a seat, or we'll sweep you off your feet. We move, you got Mel. Ease your legs, rest a while, all you gotta do is smile. We're swell, can't you tell, you got Mel. When the show begins, you better hold on real tight, or before you know it, you'll be high as a kite. Take a break, settle down, we're the only show in town. It's our road, don't you know, you got Mel. Give it up, don't think twice, we're a hurricane on ice. What the hell, give it yell, ring a bell, show and tell. Mademoiselle, give a smell, you got Mel. You've got Mel.
Fantastic.
It works.
It works. So do you play the saxophone?
I play the saxophone, but I've gone back to piano.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to try and interview you.
Okay.
We have so many things in common. You want to give your 67 who you are, 60-second who you are,
sure,
in about a minute.
Okay. Well, I'm Mike Southon. I've been an entrepreneur for 40 years. I was lucky enough to co-found, build and sell a company with some friends back in the 80s. I've done lots of entrepreneurial things. And back in 2002, I co-authored a book called, I'll just go and find one, The Beer Mat Entrepreneur. Here we go, The Beer Mat Entrepreneur. And just to translate for any Americans or Australians, a beer mat is a coaster, one of these things. I've got one here somewhere that you go to a good old British pub and you write on a beer mat or coaster and turn your good idea into a great business. Obviously, this is a metaphor, which is not everybody goes to the pub or drinks beer. I remember I did speak in Tehran once where I was the coffee shop entrepreneur for kind of obvious reasons, but there we go. So I produced this book and I've had lots of fun in my life. And currently I'm entrepreneur in residence at a well-known business school in London, which up till last week was called Cass Business School. But they discovered that, unfortunately, he's got a bit of a bad background, even though he was a great philanthropist as well. So we're currently, they are currently working out what to call the university and then just hoping all the students are going to come back in the autumn, as I'm sure you're finding as well. It's going to be a different world teaching at a university, as I'm sure it is in Tel Aviv as well. So,
are you Jewish, Mike?
I'm not Jewish, no, but I've got a big interest in Jerusalem. In fact, I'm pleased to say I did go to Jerusalem once, and well, it was a fabulous time. And look what I actually got. I've got it here. I met this guy in the street outside a shop, and he sold me the actual Ark of the Covenant. This is the real one, apparently. It was only $50. I mean, not bad value for one of the greatest sacred relics of all time. So no, I find Jerusalem. I went to Jaffa as well. I study history.
By the way, I have a startup that sells holy water for $30. So.
Put me down for a few gallons. It's such a good thing. No, I have to say I found Jerusalem quite probably the most interesting place on earth because I love ancient religions, ancient stories. There's 3 for the value of 1 within about a square mile, plus the Armenians, which kind of bonus extra religion. I just had the best time in Jerusalem, just walking around, taking it all in, talking to people. I mean, what an interesting place. I mean, I don't need to tell you, obviously. And I love going to Jaffa first. I went to Jaffa first. I stayed in Tel Aviv, and I found the lovely place where supposedly, I think it was St. Paul had a dream and woke up and decided that we Christians didn't have to be kosher, so that was quite handy. So
That's a big plus, and there's one more, but we won't discuss it right now.
exactly. But no, so I wish shalom to everybody in Israel, and I'm dying to get back as soon as I just find the place fascinating.
Yeah, no, so I don't know whether to be insulted that you didn't phone me.
Well, didn't know you, but I did meet some very interesting people, which I'll tell you about over a beer or a coffee sometime in Tel Aviv.
When was that?
Oh, it was about 3 years ago. I went in November, and it
We had
was.
so much fun, and my birthday's in November.
I'll put down November again.
When's your birthday?
My birthday's in July. It's coming up next week. So, but
Mazel tov.
thank you. And well, November was good. It wasn't too hot, so I've got in my mind maybe November again. So, but what date is your actual birthday? Because I'll see if I can make sure I make it then.
It's the 12th. It's the 12th.
12th of November. So.
And I'm wondering about this year, Mike. I'm thinking it might be in 2020. You don't want to come now to Israel.
Nah, I'm
sure. We guys are beating you out virus-wise.
Yeah.
One of the things we're not going to talk about on the show is the present.
Mm.
We're not going to talk about present speculation. We'll talk about future speculation.
Exactly.
So you've made a career on beer.
Well, kind of on beer mats.
And you also studied chemistry, and you delved.
Yeah, a long time ago, I did do a chemical engineering degree, but immediately got into computing. So as soon as I graduated, it was actually some of my friends from university who were good at computing. So I turned into a kind of a computer guy in the 80s. I mean, I can't remember how to design a heat exchanger or anything. I know you've got a background in chemistry, so.
No, but I escaped. I escaped from Canada. I had a scholarship to study chemical engineering at U of T. I escaped, and I went to Israel to a kibbutz. I escaped from chemistry, but that's another story. When you interview me, you can talk about it.
Of course.
So, do you also like beer?
I do like beer, yes.
You have a beer?
I don't have one with me today. It's a bit early in the day for me, but I may well be having one later. So
okay, so next time we talk, we'll have a beer together.
Definitely.
And so you've given free advice to thousands of entrepreneurs.
Yep.
There's 1 million entrepreneurs in Israel that are going to want your advice. So I'm going to ask you for a few tips for my community. But before I do that, we have so much in common. I think the most intriguing part of what I read about you is your love of the Beatles.
Well, yes, I am a huge Beatles fan. My bookshelf back there is laden with Beatles books, and I took it to the ultimate extreme. I managed to engineer it that I became entrepreneur in residence for the city of Liverpool, partly to do a big conference there. And with Richard Branson, I interviewed him on stage. If you look on my website, that's me in Liverpool. But I got to meet all the Beatle folks there. And I met a really interesting guy whose name is Rogue Best. Now, he's my kind of drinking buddy in Liverpool. Now, he's not only Pete Best's brother. You'll probably know that Pete Best was in the Beatles, but he's also the son of Neil Aspinall, who back in the day was the Beatles roadie, then ran Apple Corporation. Now, when I
one of the roadies together with Mel.
Absolutely right. So you know exactly who Neil is. So, and they got a place in Liverpool, which you haven't been, you've got to go to, called the Casbah Coffee Club, which is where the Beatles started in Liverpool before the Cavern. It's the Pete Best family home. And you go there, you get a tour, and you just, I don't believe this. You know, what I'm hearing.
In Pete's mother's garage, they started.
Right.
So I got to tell you, I was going to go to Liverpool last summer. And at the last moment, I enrolled for a jazz singing course in London. And I went to London instead. And it's a good thing, because when I go to Liverpool for the first time in my life, I'm to take you.
Well, I can introduce you to all the right people, because when I used to go drinking with Rogue, when I first went there about 7 years ago, he had 1,000 plus pieces of Beatles memorabilia that nobody knew about in storage from his dad and from Pete. And I said, well, this is an offense against God. You know, why haven't you got it in a museum? And he said, well, you know, I met some guys, they were going to rip me off and da-da-da-da-da. So I introduced him. I mean, you'd probably do the same thing, which is, look, I know somebody who can maybe talk to you about that. And one of my friends is the guy who does Harry Potter in London, all the shops and all of that. So he knows about merchandise and whatever. They had a chat. They didn't do a deal particularly together, but that gave Rogue the confidence to open what is now the Liverpool Beatles Museum on Matthew Street, opposite the Cavern. So all that memorabilia is now in a proper museum, and it's fabulous. And, you know, maybe we can get Rogue to show us around and show the stuff, because all the stories are fantastic. But this is stuff that you don't see anywhere else in the world. The only other people who might have something similar are the main Beatles themselves. But, you know, the gifts that Elvis gave the Beatles, and, you know, it just goes on and on. And if you look on their YouTube, just for the Liverpool Beatles Museum, every day Rogue says, here I am in the museum, here's a piece of memorabilia you can't see anywhere else in the world. And they've all got a lovely little story. The latest one was John Lennon's garden furniture. And the great thing is he's got all this memorabilia, but people are giving him things like a policeman who was there in New York when they arrived has the logbook and tells stories. And he tells a great story about how when the Beatles arrived, there's all these crowds in New York. They said, who's this for? Well, it's for you. No, it must be for Elvis Presley or somebody or Frank Sinatra. They didn't realize it was for them. So, yeah, you come to, well, there's a place in London you can go, which not many people know about. But yeah, you and I will definitely go to Liverpool. And let me take you down, as John himself said, and show you.
That's very exciting. And you live in London now?
I live in London, central London. Yeah, I'm really lucky. I live just near Hampstead Heath. So you must have been to London.
Well, I've been to London maybe 200 times.
Well,
London made my career, but that's when you interview me. So, and how does the Beatles fit in with your entrepreneurial story? You have you use the Beatles.
I use the Beatles. Well, they're great. Well, all entrepreneurs start off by being passionate about something without thinking they're going to make any money, to be honest. Maybe they will. That's exactly the Beatles. Then
in Israel, they all think they're going to be millionaires.
Well, exactly. So you put your stuff out there, and if you're lucky and have a good salesperson like me, because my job is sales generally, people do want your stuff. Then you become the best, whatever it is, in Tel Aviv, then the best in Israel, then the best in the Levant, and then the world, like the Beatles did. Then it always goes horribly wrong for you, like it did with the Beatles, where egos and problems and this and that and the other. Then you come through it. And of course, if you're good, you leave a legacy. I mean, those Beatles songs are going to be played forever, whatever you might think of the Beatles individually. So it's a great entrepreneurial story. So when I perform live, I use them as a metaphor. I start off with, here's when you know you've made it. And it's the story of when they played the Ed Sullivan Show. They were told, live television, don't mess up, 20 million people are watching. Actually, it was 72 million. It was a critical moment, as all successful entrepreneurs have. Not all entrepreneurs are successful. We can talk about that. But it's that moment when you suddenly think, we've got what it is, whatever it is. We don't know. And it was not quite what we thought it was, because it's about seizing the moment.
Yeah, Mike, this is what I want to ask you. Okay, so like you, I'm a musician. Those guys are singing to the microphone, probably lousy monitors, and they are spot on, and they know the world is watching. I don't know how old you were, but I was there.
Yeah.
And how did they maintain their Beatlish composure?
Nobody knows is the answer. Now, if you watch the clip, what's interesting about it is, first thing is, I've got a feeling that Paul reduces the key of the song by about a tone or half a tone, just so he knows he can hit that note, because he's doing All My Loving. And he goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, close your eyes. Then after 2 lines, John goes, yeah, because he knows they've made it, whatever it is, you know. And nobody knows why and what and whatever. I mean, a good musician's story, another guy you might want to interview is an amazing guy called Scott Bradley, who's a jazz musician.
Oh, I know him. I would love to interview him.
Oh, he's a great entrepreneur, because he was in New York, you know, doing okay, thought I'll give up, go back to college and study calculus. But I'll just put a little video online of me doing boogie woogie piano of 80s music. It went viral, 25,000 views. And Neil Gaiman, the author, said, it's great. So he's now got a thing called Postmodern Jukebox. And because for him, he did one song called Thrift Shop, which got millions. And I mean, nobody quite knows why. He had that magic. So you put something on YouTube, which is what I'm doing at the moment, and you just hope it'll go viral. If it doesn't, you've helped a few people. What's the problem? If it's when it does go viral and people are. Now, of course, you can increase your chances by having, for example, as I'm doing, a short YouTube video with animation. So it stands a chance for the young people to share it. But no, my message to all entrepreneurs is, whatever your business idea is, it's brilliant. I've never heard a bad one in my life. Someone's going to make a fortune doing it. Let's talk to you. Are you building a team? Have you got a foil? I mean, for the books, I mean, I don't write the books. It's my best friend from school, Chris West, who's a philosopher and a novelist. So between us, we are what is beer mat. So if you're an extrovert like me, you've got an introvert who's actually doing the work and making sure it makes sense. And if you're an introvert, you've got an extrovert promoting what you do. So finding your foil, your soulmate, your partner, your business partner, that's 90% of it. Because if there's two of you, so all the things that I hate to do, and there's plenty of them, somebody else does them better. And they would much prefer to do spreadsheets and analysis and all the stuff that, I can do it, but get me out there in front of a crowd of people. I'm like you, I'm a musician. I have front bands. I don't play a musical instrument. I'll get the audience there and keep them after the first number, which is the thing when playing live, because I've done a lot of live work.
Before we go on to the 2020, which I want you to talk about,
Sure.
You have a career as a singer and frontman.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've always played in bands. In fact, the first band where I actually
when you say you play instruments.
I sing. I'm the front guy.
Okay.
I'm the singer and front man. So there's an audience there. My job is to get them engaged and keep them there and get them dancing. So I can sing enough to get by. I'm not exactly.
So if I asked you to sing a Beatles song now, just the beginning of one.
Yeah. Sure. There's nothing you can do that can't be done. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. This is the best song ever for entrepreneurs. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy. All you need is love. So that's kind of nearly my closer in the show. Find something you love what you do, love your friends, love your customers, love everything. All you need is love. So yeah, so I sing. Now I've always sung in bands. The first band that I actually got paid for, not a lot, was back in the 70s when I was in an Oxford undergraduate band with Chris West, my co-author. Neither of us were at the university, so that was the first band I was in. And then when I was lucky enough to with my friends, sell a company in 91, I went full time into being like a pretend 60s, 70s pop star with a big afro. I became Mike Fab Gear, and it got completely out of control.
You had another name.
Yeah, Mike Fab Gear.
Vaseline or something.
Oh, Gorgeous Mike Vaseline was the guy in the jazz band.
That wasn't you?
Sorry?
That wasn't you.
No. Gorgeous Mike Vaseline was my stage name for reasons I can't really remember. I remember I did put Vaseline on my hair once, which was
that's quite a cool stage name.
Oh yeah, but Mike Fab Gear is my sort of 60s, 70s guy, and I played. Well, I mean, what I realized was I can sing enough to get by, but I need the best musicians in the world, and you can get them if you pay them, and you've got to get the ones that treat you well and love what they do and so on. So I played with, I mean, in my rock Mike Fab Gear context, I played with people from Deep Purple and Iron Maiden and all sorts of good bands. So first thing is, here's a crazy guy at the front. This looks interesting. Then, oh my God, that's the best band I've ever seen. And I've got a horn section and girl singers and all of that. And then finally, that's the best song in the world, because again, back in the 70s, me and Chris had a disco. So we knew which songs to play at the right time. We need to slow it down a bit. We need to speed it up a bit. So I know exactly which songs. Obviously, for reasons you will know, I kick off with I Saw Her Standing There. It's kind of the law.
Of course.
Then we go into, of all songs.
Which is probably illegal today, but...
well, there we go. Yes, exactly. That's
probably Jeffrey Epstein's favorite song, too.
Let's move swiftly on. But I'll say
yes.
You'll be fascinated with this, which is what happens in the second song is Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison. Da-da-da-da-da. The guitarist plays it. Everybody goes on the dance floor. You can do the same with ABBA tunes. So I've got a very good sense of which song should work at the right time in a stage set. So I started off in colleges where my biggest customer, and I still bump into him, it's rather bizarre, was an entertainment manager at University College London, a chap you may have heard of called Ricky Gervais, who booked me 5 or 6 times. And I bump into him. He lives in Hampstead near me. This was Mike Fab Gear, Ricky Gervais. So I did colleges, I did theatres, I did a week at the Liverpool Empire when I played Liverpool. And then I did lots of corporate events. It's gradually kind of tailed off when I started speaking for a living.
Here's the question, Mike.
Yeah.
So you've had I teach my students the same thing. Have at least 2 careers.
Yes, absolutely.
At least. But when you made all your money,
yep,
you could afford to take first-class musicians with you.
Exactly.
Why did you go back to becoming an entrepreneur, running companies, teaching entrepreneurship?
Well, it was so.
Why did I interview you with your wig?
Sure, you'll be able to look on the internet. I'll send you a link to my show reel. You can send that out. So imagine me with a big afro and whatever. Okay, so that was in the 90s. Then in the 2000s, I started getting drawn back into companies that were startups, high-tech startups, typically doing what I do, which is sales, early stage sales, hunting sales, the most difficult bit. And then, but in the 90s, I'd actually been invited into City University, or Cass Business School as it was then, to talk about computing once a year. And it was a conversation. After about 10 years, people were less interested in the computing I knew about, more tell us another good story about startups, another disaster you've been involved in. And somebody said, you should write a book about that. And I thought, I'll write my autobiography. Then I thought, right, two problems with that. First, I'm not exactly a writer. I can write, but I'm not a writer. And also, nobody's going to buy a book about me. I'm not that famous. So I got together with Chris West. I've known for 50 years since I was at school. We produced this, and then it was a hit song. We sold 100,000 of these. I've no idea why. Mostly in the early 2000s. So then I went on the speaking circuit. So then I'm on the speaking circuit. I played, I was doing 100 gigs a year, conferences. Eventually I get to talk about the Beatles. I did that. And then I became entrepreneur for the city of Liverpool. So I came off the road and I've done various things. So things have just popped up. And then literally in the last year, what was Cass Business School said, do you want to teach entrepreneurship? So I said, all right. So, and it's undergraduate. This is the interesting thing. So there's always a debate. Can you teach entrepreneurship? Well, you can teach anything. Of course you can. But my view is to teach entrepreneurship, please, no offense to any of the academics out there, you've got to have been an entrepreneur. I mean, no offense, unless you've been there and done it, you can talk about all the theoretical models in the world. So my challenge was this, which is, and I got Chris involved immediately, my co-author. I had 309 students in 2 sittings for 11 weeks. And it was literally, what do I do? And it was in a big lecture theatre. And so it was very showy. The Beatles were in there and other videos and stuff and whatever. And it went very well. Then we did marketing strategy in the spring. So now we find ourselves in a very interesting place. I'm sure it's the same at your university, which is, are the students going to come back? Are we going to teach them remotely for a year? And my audience at City, or Cass as it was mostly from abroad, many from Israel. They were from all around the world, paying a large amount of money to go to London, which is great. Come to London, it's fabulous. And get a top quality education. And every university that I know is like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because the old models are going where there's lots of academics who are very good at research, which is fantastic. You've got the league tables, but they're not really that interested in teaching. They want people like you and me who put a show on. Of course, they need the academic. I mean, some things have a great academic rigor.
I absolutely. Look, I taught 2 courses this semester. One to 150 students. It didn't do so well on Zoom because it was about music and we couldn't sing together.
Okay.
But the course in entrepreneurship and how to be amazing in the digital age was so good on Zoom that the students didn't want to come back to class for the final party.
There we go.
Yeah, but the caveat is that, like you say, we can teach this all over the world now.
Exactly.
So I'm with you. I'm very excited, but I don't know what's going to happen. Now, let me ask you about the 2020,
Yep.
which is brand new to me. I'll speak to you about your book. I'm intrigued.
Sure.
I will buy it, but I want to publish the.
I will send you a copy. I've some provided by my sponsors.
Yeah,
Give me your
but
address. I'll put one in the post.
do you own the copyright to the book?
No, well, this particular one belongs to Pearson, but I get such a good rate. I mean, see, great thing about having a book is
Because I have a publishing house. I want to publish something in Britain.
We've just got the rights back to Sales on a Beer Map. We can talk to you about that. So
Okay.
yeah, there we go. We can do a deal.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but
the deal is love, because I do things now like you, not for money, for love.
absolutely.
So stuff that we can give away to the world.
There we go.
I feel like you. I had a wonderful life.
Mhm.
I got much more than I deserved, and I'm happy to do lots of things for free that I would always charge for until about 10 years ago.
Sure.
So what's this 2020 thing?
Oh, well, what I'm working on at the moment is the idea is that, I mean, the 11 weeks of lectures that we did live, but we could do very well on Zoom, and we did the last 2 on Zoom. That is something that could be published anywhere. So anybody could see that material. And of course, if that encourages you to come to London and spend £18,000 a year, there's a, because I spoke to the parents. They're all got their own family businesses, and they hope that young Igor or Inga is going to come to London, learn everything about business because they never did, and come back and run the family business. Whether they do or not is a different thing. So I'm working hard on that material. So literally it could be offered to anywhere. And maybe that puts City in a better light than other universities. The next thing I'm working on is, I've literally just done the first episode, is how does this work on YouTube? So I actually went to see Scott Bradley in Los Angeles to say, how have you done it? Because I wanted to talk about marketing strategy that wasn't just, you know, Coke versus Pepsi or something. And how do you do it? You're at home. How do you, you know, get people to watch? And the answer is nobody really knows. It's like, well, let's you and me write a hit tune and be like the Beatles. But you can increase your chances. So literally, I put together, and it's a little animated 5 minutes, which is designed for somebody who's post-lockdown. They're at home. They've got a computer. They've got a beer mat. That's all they've got. And what am I going to do? And if you can get a job, great. But even if you do, you should always have your side thing that you're doing for fun to keep yourself alive.
But with all your great success,
Mhm.
the animation that you sent me has not gone viral yet.
No, because I haven't told anybody. It's just up there to
Well,
work.
let's tell everybody. I'll share the.
Well, put it this way. It might go
I'll share it
automatically.
with my 5 million followers.
Please do. They see that's
All I need is it's like the Beatles song.
Yep.
I've got a driver, and that's a start.
Yeah. I've got a driver. And
I have an animation, and that's a start.
that's exactly the point. So what I'm going to do is to get people to say, do you know what? I think I will send that link of Mike's little 5-minute video to everyone and see what happens. And if 20 people sign up, it's free.
It was very cute. So Mike, here's something. I also teach entrepreneurship.
Okay.
What percent of startups succeed in your opinion? Just give me a number.
Well, it depends. Somebody's trying to build a large business past you working from home. So they've got a mind to build Microsoft one day, or they're going to get venture capital or whatever. I'd say 10%.
Okay.
Something goes wrong.
It's interesting that people in the UK say 10%, that people in Israel usually say less than 1%.
Yeah, quite possibly. And the reason they fail is that they make a very fundamental error each time. And it's different with each one. But the main thing is first work out quickly whether people want your stuff or not.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is by having a service. So the beer mat method is you've got an idea for a service. First, my question for you is, do you trust me? You know, if you say, yeah, I trust you, Mike, well, would you trust me to, I don't know, mow your lawn? Would you, yes or no?
I just met you, but mowing the lawn is easy. Yes.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, you could do it yourself, but why not get me to do it because I'm passionate about lawn mowing?
Haircut, no, but mow the lawn, yes.
Fair enough. And I say to my students, look, if you've ever done babysitting, that means they trust you. They trust you with their children. So they'll trust you to whatever it is you're going to do. Then ask for money up front. Because the way we got our company started in 1984 was that we'd worked for a year for other people. So we all started on our own. And everybody looked at me expectantly the first morning, like sell £10,000 worth of training in 6 months or we go broke. I called up my favorite customer from the last company and said, hey, guess what? We got our own company. I sold a course we hadn't written yet to people who kind of liked me, trusted us to write the course, and I got money up front. Now that's my approach. You sell a service, you ask for half up front to see what happens. Then you do the job. Then you may never do it again. You didn't like doing it or they didn't like you. If word is beginning to take off, then you suddenly have your Scott Bradley moment, which is, oh my God, everybody likes modern tunes done in a 20s style with a gorgeous singer and this and that and the other. You can look at the elements, but when you go viral, now I've done many venture-backed things where you're pitching to a group of people who aren't entrepreneurs. They want to lend money to make more money, and the whole thing's just broken. And you're hoping that I'm working on an insurance technology platform for a friend of mine right now. We're hoping this is going to take over the world. And he's already got a lot of funding. He may get even more, but it might not. But I have a feeling it is because I'm doing sales. I'm speaking to the customers and I'm the person who knows, because I've had many sales jobs in my life. In some cases, I couldn't sell the stuff. I tried everything, not quite blackmail and violence, but I literally tried everything. And my sales skills haven't improved radically since about 1985. If I can sell it, that's a good sign. If I can't sell it, maybe back to the pub, get another beer mat out and come up with a better idea. It's about the trust you have with people and whether you can get money from them up front, and then you get angel investors and so on. But the main cause of failure for businesses is not market changing, it's vanity. You got so much up your hubris. You
have this idea of having 5, like a company
cornerstones. Yeah,
into 5 parts.
Now, this is what happened in the company I had in the 80s by accident. We each had 20%. So it meant that if one of us went a bit crazy, but also we were a balanced team. There was sales, there was technical, there's all that in there. We put in our original book, have 5 people with 20%. And we've taken it out of the book now because nobody ever does it. So, Mike, are you an idiot? Should I give 80% to some other idiots? I'm like, I think I've got what the problem is here. You think everybody's an idiot, but no, but it's, you hand out equity to people when they earn it, but you need that balanced team. Let's just start with two of you. And a good start is an introvert and an extrovert. Best example, the Beatles. Remember that song? Paul McCartney, the eternal optimist. Got to admit it's getting better all the time. Lennon, can't get any worse. And that's the kind of yin and yang you need. If you build a team and people like what you do and you're nice to people so that when you screw up, they come back and forgive you and so on, then you can build a service business up, interestingly, to about 25 people, just by being good. Then I always say to people at 25, that's a magic number. You've got two choices. Well, three choices. One is give up. The other two choices are, yeah, let's build it to a big company. Or let's stay at 25 all our life. Keep putting the prices up, nobody cares. And you retire with good money. You've got your ski chalet and your boat or whatever it is you want and whatever, and you just turn off the lights and go home. But if you want to grow from 25 to 50, top tip, hire grown-ups. They may be younger than you, but these are people that have run big companies and know exactly how to build a company and do all the forms and the spreadsheets and all that kind of, boring stuff that you don't care about because you're on to the next idea anyway. So we call it from sapling to mighty oak. Sapling's got an office. A mighty oak is a big company. It's 50 people, Mike. It's a big company. We went through that. Then 150 is another magic number. That's when we sold the company. And it was not quite take the money and run, but we all thought we could stick around and hope to make 10 times the amount. Take the money and run, do the next thing. And people go through 7-year cycles. Every 7 years, you think about reinventing yourself. There's a bunch of stuff I talk about, which makes it fun. But my happiest days are in front of an audience, of course, whether I'm singing or which is just fun, or I'm in front of, I don't know, as you've been, 150 students. And okay, there's probably about, I was told, I shouldn't tell you this figure. I was told when you give your marks, probably 25% can get a first-class degree. More than that, we ask questions, or less than that. It was too difficult.
Yeah, well, okay, because we're not talking about education, because this is something that I feel strongly about. Mm-hmm. I don't care about marks anymore.
No, but
they take an American, we call it an American multiple choice exam.
Yeah, it's fine. But
and if you're teaching anything of import, well, how important is the mark? It's like, exactly. I never met you before, mm-hmm. right? And I'm dying to get on a plane and come have a beer with you. Mm-hmm. It's a question. The salesmanship is a question of integrity. Mm-hmm. It's of selling yourself first.
Exactly.
And
you're going to enjoy sales on a beer mat. No, my point about the students is there's a bunch of them there. Some are at the back. They're watching Instagram. They're not really that bothered. They came to London to have fun. They'll get a good enough mark. They're not bothered. The 25% who get it, and the word I always use about what you need to be an entrepreneur is a bit of an odd word. It's called gumption. That's kind of almost indefinable desire to, do something and bounce back and whatever. The ones who get it really get it, and they're going to be the future leaders. And that's our legacy, yours and mine. There'll be people out there who may not remember us, who, we said one thing once, or they read it in a book or something, they got inspired. And I always think from a spiritual point of view, if you've done some good and nobody realizes it was you, you've won. Like, nobody who goes past that Beatles museum in Liverpool knows I had anything to do with it. Rogue does, and so does Pete Best. My biggest joy is that Pete comes up to you and says, "Hey, Mike, how are you doing?" Actually, I've got another funny story about Hamburg that nobody else has heard. I'm in heaven. And I've touched Beatles things that nobody else will ever touch. It's just like one of the little videos that Rogue did recently was, if you watch the All You Need Is Love video, up in the corner, off the guitar solo, it starts on this puppet figure, then it pans out. I've held that doll. I call him Mr. Groovy. It's my name for him. It's a doll that was made by Donovan's wife. There were a few of them, but the kids, that's Rogue Best and Julian Lennon, destroyed the other ones. They just played with them and they broke. So and that for me is worth more. The fact that people shake my hand, will sit down, and I've heard the most brilliant stories about Hamburg, which I hope he puts in a book, which are not bad stories, just the amazing time when they thought Pete was going to be killed by one set of gangsters because he had it's a great story. I'll tell you the story over a beer, but essentially there was a point when they went back to Hamburg where they thought the gangsters from the old club where they were going to kill us because they weren't happy we went to a new club, but it was all settled. It's just such a brilliant, I'll get Pete to tell it to you. It's just such a brilliant story.
So one second. You know Pete Best?
I know Pete, yeah.
I could interview him sometime.
I don't know is the answer, because he must get 1,000 a week.
Okay.
A
And
request.
because see, okay, so I have to mention two people, three
Sure.
people.
Sure.
First of all, we want to thank Richard Lucas,
Oh yes, Richard, definitely. What a great guy.
who introduced us to one another. He also teaches entrepreneurs.
Of course, yes,
that
he's a great guy.
The first thing is to see whether you have customers.
Exactly.
So thank you, Richard, for introducing me to this wonderful guy. And the second person I want to briefly mention is Donovan, because I grew up on Donovan and I actually got to meet him and sing with him. And if you want to find out how I did that, you'll have to interview me.
I will be delighted.
Or ask my friend Jeff Pulver. And Jeff Pulver taught me something very important that I teach my students, which is if you don't ask, the answer is no. So I'm just asking you whether I can interview Pete Best, and either I can or I can't.
I will ask Rogue, but a better way of doing it is for me to find an opportunity, and God will help us in this, where Pete says, "Oh, and if your friend could interview me, that would be great about that." Because there's been times when I've been with Pete and stuff has happened. Imagine I was in Hamburg with him once. Another time, it was a lovely story. The guy I'm working with now on this insurance technology platform used to be head of corporate venturing at Rolls-Royce, the aero engine people. And they had a client who they wanted to give a nice retirement dinner to, the guy who ran Singapore Airlines, the engineering part, who was retiring. They thought, we'll give him a nice dinner. Oh, he's a Beatles fan. Mike, would you like to come to Derby and talk about the Beatles over dinner with a few people? I said, of course I would. Then the next day, and I'm not making this up, we put him in a minivan. He didn't know where he was going. He went to Liverpool. We went to the Casbah Coffee Club, which is like, I don't believe I'm hearing these stories from Rogue. And who's this come to have a chat with you? It was Pete. And Pete shook his hand and talked to him. In fact, I had to say, Pete, mate, I'm really sorry, but I've got to get him on a train down to London because we've got to go to the Abbey Road, whatever. Oh, do I have to go now? You know, just magic. If you ask for magic, it will happen. So asking for me, it's like, look, I'm really sorry. Pete's very busy. He's doing this, he's doing that. But if the universe helps us or God helps us, then there'll be an occasion when you can sit and talk to him and it'll be the most amazing experience. He's a very serene guy. He only has one thing that he's still upset about. Not being kicked out of the Beatles. He's fine with that. You know, he made a lot of money out of the Beatles. He's on the anthology. But the sad thing is that it may have happened, I don't know, is that Paul McCartney hasn't spoken to him since 1962. And they were in Hamburg for 2 years. They were, and that's a shame. Everybody says it's a shame. I mean, they might have done it last week. If they did, we'd never find out. Paul's a bit quiet about it. But, you know, just think of karma, think of the universe, and it will happen. If not, it doesn't happen. But see, Donovan, of course, he was with the Beatles all the time. So there'll be an occasion when Donovan says, hey, why don't you come and hang out? And who's this over there? And it's, you know, they were in India with us at the Rishikesh, and, you know, so, and I'm sure Rogue knows Donovan. So, you know, we'll be in a pub in Liverpool with Rogue and talking about Donovan, and, you know, just wait for magic. But again, if you don't ask, you don't get.
So the magic in my life was singing Mellow Yellow with Donovan in a restaurant in Munich, and this happened only because of my career in entrepreneurship.
Sure.
So one of the things that I hope that people realize is that and I teach my students, that when you have multiple interests and you have passion for music, for entrepreneurship, it doesn't matter. Then the thinking between the boxes, the connecting them, this is what makes our lives so splendid.
Well, I've got a practical suggestion for how to get to meet people, something that you could do next time you feel like doing it, which might help, which is when you're next in Jerusalem. Any particular time you're going to Jerusalem? It's not far, it's 50 miles. I mean, you could go. There's probably some reason for you to go to Jerusalem. On a Friday evening, do what I did. Go down to the Western Wall, write a little note, put it in there, and say, I would love to interview Pete Best one day, and see what happens. If it doesn't, you've had a nice time in Jerusalem. I just wrote thank you on mine. I thought, there's nothing I want, nothing I need, just thank you, whoever it is.
And you're saying this, and you're not even an official Jew.
No, but I was at that particular time. I had a kippah on. I was there. I deliberately went on a Friday evening, and I went into the little synagogue just to the left.
Mhm.
Because I'll tell you a kind of weird story, which is I'm going around Jerusalem just picking up stuff, and the place that kind of got to me, and I don't know why, I just thought there's something here. They said, no, this is King David's tomb. Look, we have to tell you, he's probably not here. Because if he is somewhere, he's probably in King David's city. And if we dig him up, we'll tell you kind of thing. But I just felt, and I have no idea what it is, something there. But then the lovely story I tell people is I went on the Western Tunnels tour, which is just extraordinary, where this Orthodox Jewish lady was showing us. It's just the most extraordinary thing. I mean, good heavens, And I said, well, have you been up on the Temple Mount? She said, no, I can't. The rabbi says I can't go there. And I said, total respect. Then at the end, she said, right, hope you've enjoyed the tour. Now you've got two choices. You can go back to the Western Wall if you want, or you can come out here at the end. But I have to tell you, it's in the Arab area. So a lot of the Jewish people say, well, I'm not. She said, no. Look, no. I look very Jewish. It's the tourist area. You're not going to get in trouble. If I went to a remote bit of the Muslim area and there were kids or something, whatever. So I was the only person who came out there, and I arrived there and I thought, well, here I am. And there I was at the first station of the cross. And I'm, I suppose by background Christian, I thought there's some link up here, and but see, I'm a huge fan and I'm a real student of an interesting place called King Solomon's Temple. I study King Solomon's Temple. You can probably work out why if you just think about it. But I stood on the Temple Mount where King Solomon's Temple was, and I was facing east and thinking, him and Hiram Abiff and King Hiram and the Hiram King of Tyre and Hiram Abiff and Solomon would have probably been, it must have been about here. And that for me was just a special moment, or is a myth. Maybe it never happened. It's like an allegory. So I love to go to places that have a big history. And, on the negative side, it was just very strange to get Richard connect me because he's just in Krakow. That's been on my list of let's go to places, and Auschwitz, of course. I couldn't face Vashem. I couldn't, I just thought I will not be able to take going there. I went to the Holocaust Museum just by Schindler's grave in Jerusalem. And that's a good start. I thought, well, I may be able to take that without breaking down. I want to go to the places. I mean, I've been to Berlin, and I love the fact that there's Hitler's bunker and there's the Holocaust thing, good and evil.
Mhm.
There's lots of places like Paris, London, that have a magical quality of good and evil, where you can sit, you can meditate. Am I being good? Am I being evil? I can turn into a good person, a bad person. That's kind of the kind of underlying meaning of life that I try to pass on to the students without getting preachy on them. Because I can't take a particular religious line, do that for the baby Jesus, they might not be a Christian, but there's good in all religions, and there's something to study in all religions. And my top tip on this podcast is, as I say, 3 for the price of 1. I mean, what great value. Jerusalem, 3, and the Armenians. Check out the Armenians; they are just brilliant. They've got a terrible.
Everybody will have to wait a few months
Everybody have to wait a few months, but listen, go to Israel
until we get rid of this plague. Well, I also concur. I grew up in Canada, excuse me, and I came to Israel for a year, and that was 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been here ever since. So
it's where you feel comfortable. I mean, London, that you've been to many, many times, has a real spiritual quality about it if you look for the right things. So, for example, in the Christian tradition, the Templar churches. I mean, there's Templar graves just outside I love the Eastern Gate, the Golden Gate, which has been bricked up now. But outside there's Templar graves there, and they're first in the queue along with all the Jewish people on the Mount of Olives, just in case God comes through at the day of judgment. But I'm sure if it does happen to be Jesus, first you can probably cope with the fact it's bricked up, but also you might have a quick word with the Templars about murdering everybody in Jerusalem, which is kind of probably not what he had in mind when they did that. But no, the Templar Church, which is round, just near the Strand, it's a spiritual place, even for a non-Christian. You just sit there and you think there's something here, and you have a little meditation, and that's what you do. So there's spirituality all over the place if you look for it. Sometimes I go to places and find nothing, and I think, well, there's nothing here. But there's so many good places you can go to, like Prague, I'm fascinated with, Munich, Berlin, Paris, London. I know a lot of stuff in London. But Israel, I mean, it's spirituality, I mean, there's a great book, you probably know, written by Simon Sebag Montefiore about Jerusalem, which is, I read the book first. There's a nice little video series of it. I mean, just, what has happened in Jerusalem purely from a, militaristic point of view. There's clearly something going on there that people can't quite work out. And of course, there's tragedy involved in it as well. So that's
One of the reasons that I did so poorly at chemistry,
Mhm.
because I spent 3 years studying at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And it was just so much fun being in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Early 70s, that really I couldn't get any work done.
No.
So I wholly concur. So I'm going to sum up now.
Okay.
That this has been a remarkable conversation for people who ostensibly didn't know one another,
Mhm.
and a very good start, an
been
auspicious start for You've Got Mel, and I hope that the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Well, we talked about everything. We talked about music and the Beatles, and we talked about entrepreneurship and Jerusalem and spirituality. And maybe in another month or two, we'll have another opportunity.
Well, I will interview you. How about that? We'll just literally do it like this, and I'll just turn the tables, and I will ask you questions.
Yeah, but
How
then
about
you need to have your TV show.
Well, the conclusion I've come to actually is I could do one, but I'm busy doing other stuff. Maybe I'll cooperate with Richard, maybe with you, because I actually got one of my students who said, "Do you want some research done?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, just I've got this little YouTube channel. Get me all the podcasts and let me know how many people listen to them." And you know, a podcast is so easy to do now.
I mean, how can you cooperate with me? We're both extroverts.
Well, it can be your show. I can bring you anybody you want. I don't particularly want to sit and, you know, because I mean, I had a guest every week at the university. I mean, you probably find the same thing. For one of your friends that's done something really special in entrepreneurship or whatever, they love to come in and talk to the students. You interview them.
Okay, I'll be more than delighted. I'm going to do this every day until November.
There we go. So how about this for an offer, which is I could sit and have my own Mike Southon beer mat channel. Yeah, I could do that. It's a lot of work. It's not what I do.
You can't call it You've Got Mel.
Cool. Well, absolutely. But
you'll have to write your own jingle.
Well, there we go. So I could do that, but maybe I should cooperate with you and or Richard or somebody to say, look, you just put this out there. Whatever content you want, I can interview people. I mean, I managed to get Sir Richard Branson for the city of Liverpool. It took me about 7 months, but I did interview him 5 times that year. I'm not saying I can get Sir Richard Branson, but I can provide the content and be a star on the show. So in this case, you are CBS and I'm David Letterman or something, or Ed Sullivan, or I'm not sure I've got the right television show.
But I'm not a very good CBS. Richard is a good CBS.
Well, there we go. But between us, we have all the skills.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, I want to thank you and appreciate what you've just done. And spending 3/4 of an hour with somebody you never met before. It's been brilliant. And we'll carry on offline in a couple of days, I suppose.
Sure.
And bless you for
my
all
pleasure and bless
stuff that you're doing. And as an entrepreneur, I want to sign up for your free consultation.
Sure. No, happy to do it.
Mike Southon, this has been wonderful.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you very, very much.
Pleasure.
Bless you.
Let's talk again.